Oh, again, good morning, good morning. All the way, excuse me, from Djuma Private Game Reserve here in the Kruger National Park. Starting off this morning with a little bit of a glitch, but don't let that get you down. We've got a massive show in front of you today. We are going to try and go live with gorillas today, all the way from Rwanda with Brent. But until that happens, we are coming into this area here close to Sydney's Dam because at around about 4 o'clock this morning I heard lions calling for the first time. Not to say that they weren't calling from before that. To be honest, I was sleeping as tight as I have in many a month last night. When I surfaced, heard these lions calling from this area, and I thought we'd crawl into this area and give it a good comb through. We're close to Sydney's Dam. Yesterday we tracked a male and a female mating pair of lions into this area. I thought that they were lying around the dam for most of the day yesterday, just because of their distinct lack of animals around this particular pan. But we got here this morning, there's nothing that crosses Vuyatela access, so nothing has moved from the dam south today. So now we're on Buffelshoek cut line, and we are hopefully going to be able to track down at least some very sharp-toothed, sharp-clawed animal for you today. Don't forget, you are welcome to send through your questions via email or Twitter. The email you can send to is questions@wildearth.tv, and you can use the Twitter handle, the hashtag #SafariLive, and we will try and get through as many of your comments and questions as we possibly can. And you're welcome. You don't have to send a question if you don't know anything about what we're looking at and you can't think of a question. You're welcome just to send a comment about an experience you had or about, I don't know, anything in particular, even if it's a conversation topic. And let's see where we can get going today. Anyway, it's myself and Jamie out. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Stefan Winterboer. On the camera today we've got Kat. And we are going to be combing this area in front of us. And while we do that, I'm sure Jamie would love to say good morning to you.
I would love to say good morning to you, so good morning to you all and welcome to the Sunrise Safari. My name is Jamie and I have Gendre on camera with me on this chilly winter's morning here in the African bush. And while Steph is scouring the northern boundary for lions, we are scouring the southern boundary for Karula, the queen of Djuma, a female leopard with 2 little cubs. Now she stashed her cubs somewhere very close to where I live. I mean really very close to where I live. I think they're somewhere just outside the fence of the house that I stay in. And I want to see whether or not she has made a return journey from where we last saw her yesterday morning, crossing south out of Djuma and into a place called Little Gowrie. I'm hoping she might have decided to return to Djuma because she definitely crossed out all by herself, leaving her 2 5-month-old or nearly 6-month-old little bundles of joy waiting patiently for her return. And now we've got to see where they are. I'm keen to see them. It's been at least a week, a bit longer, about 10 days since we last saw them, and I'm very, very excited to see how much they've grown. And now it's just a question of figuring out exactly where they are and if Mom has returned, hopefully with news of breakfast for them, since it's now been, again, 2 days since they've last had a meal. It's a tough job being a single leopard mum. And Karula has her work cut out for her. So what we're doing, first we're checking the southern boundary, then we're going to struggle to get the car back into reverse. Once we've succeeded with that, then we're going to go back to where she's been keeping her cubs. I'm going to skip the southern boundary completely. I'm going to take Treehouse Dam Road because that seems to be the path that Karula likes to walk. The difficulty is, of course, is where, if she's made a kill, where she's made the kill, and which side of the southern boundary she has made it on. Oh, what is this? Now, when I'm glancing over the side of the vehicle for our new viewers, who are joining us for the first time on this very exciting morning safari experience, I'm looking for her footprints in the sand. Now, that's what the sort of constant leaning out over the side of the vehicle is. Right, well, first animal of the day is not a leopard. It is a trotting waterbuck around Treehouse Dam. And I've stopped right here. I know the view is not fantastic, But if we go any closer, she's going to run away from us. Hello, girl. With your heart-shaped nose. A little bit jealous of the waterbuck's fur coat right now. You can imagine that it's nice and cozy under there, albeit a bit smelly. I wonder if there's a calf with her. I wonder if it's the little male that we always see around Treehouse Dam. Let's try and sneak forward. See if we can get a view of the little one. There's legs. There's its legs. And one ear. Let's go forward. Oh, well done, Rusty. Rusty's been struggling to start this morning. Which way are you going to go, baby? Okay, just coming through slowly. Hello, little one. Look how fluffy and dark you look. All the animals are very much fluffed up right now in the chilly morning air, and this waterbuck calf is no exception. Actually looks almost red in colour. It's not the little male, it's a little female. Hello, girl. You look so fluffy. Giving us a really nice view. First of all, how thick that coat is. And as the name waterbuck implies, it's because they do spend a lot of time in water, when of course there is water. And the little false hooves at the back, and their lovely eyelashes. And of course that white ring around the bottom, that in theory acts as a follow me sign for mums and calves and groups of waterbuck. That being said, I'm still not entirely convinced that's why waterbuck have white rings around their bottoms. I don't think we fully know exactly why they do. There is a type of waterbuck, not in South Africa, but further north into Africa, that has a solid white bottom. It doesn't have the ring, it just has a solid white bottom, which I have yet to see, and I'm very excited to one day have the opportunity to see. Alright, little one, we're going to leave you for now. Don't forget, guys, on your live safari experience that you can ask us questions. You can, oh, there's Mom coming past. You can send those questions through on #SafariLive on Twitter, or you can email through on questions@WildEarth.tv. And please feel free to send through any questions or comments that you might have. We definitely always appreciate hearing from you. We patiently wait for the rays of the sun to start coming up over the horizon so that we can see our tracks a bit more clearly. We're going to head off towards Treehouse Dam, and while we do, let us send you back over to Steph, find out how his search for lions is going.
You know, there's an age-old saying that says, red sky in the morning is a shepherd's warning, and red sky at night is a shepherd's delight. Have a look at this brilliantly red sunrise. Now, while I don't think it actually is the harbinger of any thunderclouds, which is actually where that saying comes from, let's hope it is, but I don't think so. It definitely shows you how much dust and diffusion is in the atmosphere at the moment. Generally speaking, we shouldn't really even be able to be looking at that sun this morning, to be honest with you. Normally, if it was a bright day, it would be absolutely too intense to look at, but you can see that very diffused red glow. Have a look at that. And that to me just says that there's a lot of dust in the atmosphere, which is actually a good thing. It's not a bad thing. Dust in the atmosphere is actually what causes rain, dust and moisture and a bunch of other things, but dust is one of the primary constituents of rain. It allows water molecule to condense around it. And that's important for us. But I predict another one of those hazy days, those days that are almost grey and white and have that sort of the tone that is almost uniform in color. That's what I predict today. I think it's going to be quite a warm day. I don't know. It's one of the things out here is that because we're so close to the sea, we're only about 100 miles from the seaside where we're standing right now, because we're in a depression between the Drakensberg mountain ranges and the Lubombo mountain ranges in a place called the Low Veld, or the Low, it's a depression. We have weird weather in this little valley of ours that is the Kruger National Park. Even though it's massive, we're looking at, say, 450 kilometers from north to south, and at the skinniest point we're looking at about 80 kilometers wide. We are right on the western side of the Kruger National Park. In that direction there, in front of us and down the road, much further down the road in actual fact, is the eastern boundary of the Kruger National Park, and about 80 kilometers from there is the seaside in Mozambique in the Indian Ocean. Now, it has been quiet while we were watching the sunrise this morning. Not a peep from those lions that were busy roaring in this area. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to be making my way out to Buffelshoek Dam. Let's go and check on that lioness with the little cubs. We had a brief visual of her yesterday before she got up and her cubs went into the thicket, and that's what I'm going to be doing now. I think I want to have a little bit of a longer view of her and her cubs. So let's go and see what she's up to. She was looking quite hungry yesterday. She had 3 of her sisters with her. They were at Buffelshoek Dam, which is a lodestone for a lot of animals. I saw buffalo tracks there yesterday. There was definitely a lot of waterbuck and zebra around when we got there. And there were a few elephants as well. So I think that's going to be a good place for us to go now and see what has transpired there over the night. In my mind, I'm busy going over the fact that it's probably going to be endless circles of lion tracks to track and find and bore you with before we finally find something that comes out of the bush. But I'm hoping that those lionesses teamed up, didn't have to hunt for too long or go too far before they found something last night. And that mommy lion had some food. One of the most, from a metabolic point of view, one of the most difficult things to make is milk in mothers. It takes a lot of energy for an animal to turn what they're eating into milk. And for that reason, she's going to try and wean these little cubs off of milk as quickly as she can. They start eating meat at about 8 weeks. So not too long from now, they're going to be starting to eat meat. She won't bring meat back to the den. Generally what happens at about 8 weeks, she'll start taking her cubs from the den to kills, where they'll start to nibble a little bit and have some meat from about 8 weeks. And they're fully weaned at about 6 months only. All depending on what happens. But with it being the end of the deep part of the dry season at the moment, I predict that there won't be a shortage of food for these lion. If anything, I think they're just going to get healthier. It's still quite cold. This morning, I say it's still quite cold with no hat on my bald head and my hands with no gloves on and my shorts on my legs. There's a grey duiker in the road in front of us. I tell you, these things are so difficult to get into camera view. Let's see if we can sneak up on him. They hardly ever sit still. I'm sure this little guy, there he is on the other side of this drainage line. Let's see if we can sneak forward. There he is there. Characteristic trot that they've got, with that black stripe on the end of the tail, and then duiker, exactly where they get their name from. Duiker is the Afrikaans word for diver, so it's in reference to the fact that whenever they see a person or whenever they see anything, they're always diving into the thickets, into the thick bush. Tough to actually get a handle on them some days. Very little is actually known about those little antelope. We get 3 of the 5 dwarf antelope that occur in South Africa here. The Steenbok, which is a familiar sight. The Duiker, which is also familiar areas of the Sabi Sands. There's a few rockier places where these granite tops stick out of the Sabi Sands. In the middle of the Sabi Sands, on the western side of the Sabi Sand, there's this ridge of rock that come in, and then right in the south of the Sabi Sands there's a little bit of rocky area as well. And quite often the klipspringer can be seen on top of those rocks in those areas. Right, now you might notice that my head is on a little bit of a swivel. Jen Lee has just asked me if any of the animals suffer from constipation because of all the dry leaves and grasses that they eat. Jen Lee, I would almost go so far as to say that animals are in a constant, the ruminants are in a constant state of chronic constipation or acute constipation, and I'll show you why I make my prediction on that in a second. Animals have the ability to take as much moisture as they possibly can out of the food that they eat and out of their intestine. And what that does is it creates a drying effect, and that then clumps together and basically gives them what we would call constipation, but for them is actually 100% normal. And what I'm going to try and find for you, there's a kudu in the road in front of us. She's just walked across. There's more in the road. Let's switch off. That silhouette is just absolutely beautiful. Just a left a bit onto the road. There we go. And there's another one coming onto the road now. Get ready with your screenshots as it's silhouetted. It's a beautiful shot. Look at that. Oh, lovely. And a young male. There we go. Some nice photos for you this morning. Kudus silhouetted against the thing. I'm just blowing my fingers. They've gone all stiff and cold. It's only 50 degrees Fahrenheit at the moment. It's actually not that freezing. But with the wind chill on top of your steering wheel, it can actually get a bit cold. So, Jen, just to get back to the answer of your question, I'm trying to find a midden, an Impala midden, to actually show you what I'm talking about. And as soon as I find one, I'll show it to you so that you can see why I say that animals are in a constant constant constipation state. Let's go forward a little bit. These kudu are making their way down this little alley. Here we've got lions roaring. That's what they're listening to. So 2 lions roaring at least. Wow. Alright, now what I need to do is now you're going to be privy to a little bit of game ranger tactics here. We're going to have to call that in on the radio. And the reason being is that it's actually quite difficult to listen to lions roaring when you've got the vehicle's engine on. And so what I'm going to do is just update everybody on the radio to the fact that I've just heard lions roaring and where I think they're roaring from. And I do that so that they can not just switch their cars off, the lions have stopped roaring now, but to start get a picture about where these lions are and to make a concerted effort to try and find them. So this is what I'm using. I'm using one of these radios. Stations, I just had audio of 2 male lion calling. It sounded like south of Vuyatela Dam at the junction with Central and Gowrie Main, somewhere around there. It could also be on Twin Dams Road, somewhere around Twin Dams junction with Chelepan, just on the northern side of that. So that's my prediction as to where I think those lions are calling. And Jamie has just spoken into my ear there. I don't know if you noticed the slightly cross-eyed look that I get there when somebody talks into my head while I'm trying to speak to you. But Jamie has just said that she's on Twin Dams Road. She's going to be making her way up Twin Dams Road to see if she can find it. All right, and that sort of has changed our plans a little bit, because we now know that those lions have been roaring, and we can go and have a look at what's going on over there. You just answer the radio again. That's affirmative. That's affirmative. All right. So now, because I called in the sighting, everyone is asking me for updates on where I particularly heard those that roaring from. And it's only we're lucky heard those Kudus switch off the car and get to hear them. But Jamie is on Twin Dams, and I'm sure she's going to be able to give you a bit more of an update about where she is and what she's about to do.
It is with deep regret that I find myself upon Twin Dams Road. Not deep regret, that's probably a slight exaggeration. But this is definitely the coldest road on Djuma, because it runs right parallel to the only major river system. I say major river system, slightly major river system on Djuma, which means because it's the lowest lying in terms of altitude, it's the lowest lying point, it's really cold. It is really very, very cold. But it's a good place to start looking for those lions that Steph heard roaring. I didn't hear them roaring because we were driving along. And it's also a good place to check for Karula tracks coming back towards where she has stashed her cubs. I've got birds calling, go away birds alarm calling just in front of us. And I just want to double check carefully. There's hyena tracks everywhere, as there always are. They come through during the night and taunt us with the fact that they have moved their den site away from where we can go and find them. But their tracks are still here, so they're still around and about each and every single night. Okay, lions, we hear you. Well, we know you're here somewhere. It's just a matter of figuring out exactly where they are, and also really hoping that they're not in the dip we call the Mulwati drainage line, because it's very cold in there. Speed things up a little bit. Let us see if we can't find those male lions. What is that? It's playing hard to get. Steph tried to sneak up on a daker. We've done a slightly... No, we haven't done any better of a job. There was a daker there. You can just see it moving at the back if you look really carefully. Well done, Chandra. Very difficult to get daker on screen. And they like to dash off almost immediately. Okay. So Steph said it was somewhere north of Cheetah. So this is Cheetah that we're coming up to now, where in summer the buffalo frolic in the muddy water. In winter it is just a dried up mud wallow. And in fact, you know, I don't think we ever collected the Easter egg that we hid in that tree. That I hid in that tree, come to think of it. We had an Easter egg hunt, and I think perhaps in that leadwood tree there is still an Easter egg hiding out. Might go and look for that at some point. Wonder if anybody ever collected it. I think I went on leave straight after that. Oh well. Don't worry, they were just eggs, so they're not going to pose any kind of risk to any of the animals out here. Alright, now things walked along Twin Dams Road this last night, except for hyena and mongoose. Okay, here's the coldest part. I forgot my hot water bottle this morning, which I'm deeply regretting. Good morning to Tiffany, and many of you will know Tiffany. She is Shanae's sister. Tiffany, it's wonderful to have you watching our safari, and yes, I will try really, really hard to find you a giraffe. You're right, we haven't seen that many giraffe recently. I don't know where they've all gone. Maybe they are, I don't know, maybe they've gone to see if there's some better food towards the rivers, where there's a bit more water. But honestly, I don't know where all of our giraffe has gone. It feels like a really long time since I last saw a giraffe. I will look very hard to see if we can't find them. And Tiffany's also super excited about the gorillas, as am I. I really, really cannot wait. I'm going to be racing after the end of the sunrise safari to go to final control to see if we can watch them from there. I think everybody is feeling incredibly excited about this. Tiffany, I'll make sure I look out for giraffe for you. And Linda, yes, as far as I know, yes, that's going to be the plan. Brent is going to be on foot with the gorillas. There's a question through from Linda Wise. I'm a little bit jealous of this opportunity, but I'm also mainly just incredibly excited for him. I think it's going to be a fantastic experience, and I can guarantee that Brent's also going to be looking at each and every single bird species that he can find and add to his list. One of our viewers actually asked yesterday if it was cheating to add the birds to their bird list, and I said absolutely not. You're not going to have, well, you never know, but for now, this is going to be a once-off opportunity to add birds from Rwanda to your bird list. You might as well make the most of it. It'll be interesting though, because Graham will be Brent's cameraman, so it'll be interesting to see if he is going to be prepared to zoom in on all the different bird species. Woo! Okay, there's no lions on this road. That much I can tell you. There's no tracks. So they haven't walked here yet. Unless they're further up towards the pan. Might even be heading to that spot for a drink. While we come through here, no, hold on. Oh, these are old. These are from yesterday. There are lion tracks here, but these are from the lion that Steph had on the sunrise safari yesterday, making his way south. And the reason I say that is because they've already been driven over. None of the vehicles except for me have come along this road just yet. Right, while we're here, this is the house that I live in is probably about 300 yards into the bush there, and that is where the last tracks of Karula's cubs disappeared into the bush. She went in with them and she came out on her own. So somewhere in here are little leopard cubs hiding out waiting for Mom to come and fetch them. And they will start getting braver, so it's worth coming through really slowly here, because they're going to start ranging a bit further afield. They're not staying right in the bush that Mom put them in. They will start exploring their world a little bit. These birds would tell us. With their sharp eyes, these birds would give us the first indication that something had wandered past. We've got some go-away birds that are doing exactly what I want to do, which is find a spot in the sun. Sunbathe a little bit. They're also looking puffed up and a bit chilly. It also gives me an opportunity to just sit and listen for a moment. Sure that these lions are somewhere here. Okay, so while we look about for any sign of the lions or Karula's cubs, Michael, you wanted to know how old the cubs would have to be before they could survive on their own without their mother, in case something did happen to Karula. And the answer is it will be at around a year and a half probably that they would be capable of surviving. A year, possibly. A year-old leopard cub is capable of making small kills, and they do at around that age to practice. So that's a possibility. Shh, sorry. I just heard a soft line. Ooh. Now all I hear is a woodpecker. Let me put my earpiece back in. I'm trying to show you a moth. Hold on one moment. I'm going to try and scoop it up because it's an amazing looking moth. Come on, buddy. There we go. My freezing bright red fingers. Look at this moth. Now, have you ever seen something so perfectly designed for hiding in trees? And actually it's got this fine scaling stuff that's come off of my finger as it brushed past. So that scales from this moth's feather. Oh, sorry, not feathers. They don't have feathers. They have wings. But I mean, this moth, if you put it on a tree with a bit of lichen, it would absolutely be perfectly camouflaged. I have no idea what it is. It's one of those amazing little creatures. There's so many different types of moth species that this one is a mystery. I'm trying to get a hint as to what it might be. I know some of you are really good at finding out what different moths are. So if you could figure out what this may be and send those answers through to me on #SafariLive on Twitter, or email them through to questions@wildearth.tv. I'd love to hear about it. I'm very curious. I could check in my insect book, which I think I have with me, but I doubt somehow it's going to be in there. So if we go forward a little bit, try and do this one-handed. So if we have a look at the lichen on this, or the peeling bark actually as well, lichen plus peeling bark on this guarri bush. Oh, this little moth might want to ride along with us, but it's not a very good place for it to be. So I'm going to pop it back on there as a perfect spot for it to be entirely camouflaged. Let's see if we can't get it on here. There you go, buddy. Come on. Yes, no? Don't want to hurt him. There we go. How does that look? Can you see him there, Jandre?
Yeah.
Now, not quite. He needs a lighter color lichen. But that will do for now as a hiding hole for our little mystery moth. Nice opportunity to just have a look at tracks in the sand. Cool. From here I can't see him at all. A perfect little hiding spot. No calls of those lions again. I think they might be on a mission to try and get somewhere else. Okay. Bye-bye, moth. I can actually just see it poking out over the top of the bark there. While we continue our search for these male lions, and I've got some Inyala walking in front of me here that I think would have alarm called if they had been on this road, so I'm going to expand my search slightly further afield. I just want to check around this block for any sign of Karula coming out first. While I do, let's go back across to Steph, find out how his morning is going.
And you caught us just about to approach Buffelshoek Dam. I don't quite know what we're going to be finding over here. The lionesses are not at the den, and so we did make a turn through there. Didn't see any lionesses, didn't find any fresh tracks in the area, and have moved out. So they're still hunting somewhere. So they're either lying on a kill somewhere, or they're still out hunting, or making their way back to this particular area. I haven't seen any tracks crossing north towards Buffelshoek, and so I still think that they're somewhere around here, probably between here and where we heard those male lions roaring. Nothing here, which doesn't surprise me with a lioness literally with cubs right here. She'd come down to this water quite often, I think. What I'm looking for is any fresh sign. There's a big game path, two of them actually, that come out of this block. Quite often you'll find that lions will use those game paths. Sorry, Rebecca, you're just going to have to go with that question again. I didn't quite catch the beginning of it. So Ellie, all the way from Indiana, and good morning to you, Ellie. It's still evening for you there. You've asked me, wouldn't roaring chase animals away, basically, so to make it difficult to hunt? That was a grey heron that you were having a look at over there, by the way, just before I answer that question. Ellie, not really. I've seen animals listen to roars, just similar to how those kudu were doing when we were listening to the roar and watching them react to it. And they only really react when it's close to them. And then they move off only a little bit. They tend to be, like we are, we're quite dismissive if we can't actually see the lion. It's funny that how it works like that. So no, not really. Doesn't hurt their chances whatsoever. I think they're a little bit more cautious, but nothing much else. Oh, that hippo is not here. I did see his fresh tracks. He probably will come back at some time this morning. I think these poor hippos in this particular area are needing to feed for so much time during the evenings to get enough grass to fill their big bodies. I think they take their time getting back here, and with it not being that hot, with it not being that warm until probably 9 or 10 o'clock, I think they can actually afford to stay out much longer there than they otherwise would. So not much going on over here. Alright, let's have a look at that grey heron again. He seems to be in residence here at the moment, mainly fishing for frogs, amphibians, arthropods. It's any sort of insect that lives in the mud, any fish that happen to have survived the first drying up of this pan, which happened a couple of months ago, and then we had some rain which filled it up. Now it's fast drying. It's difficult to predict exactly how long this water will last, to be quite honest, because we don't know the rate of evaporation with these cooler days. But I'm sure that for that entire time, this grey heron he's going to have a feast here. This water will definitely be attracting some forms of life. That's on the menu of this particular bird. Quite a large bird. You're looking at it standing. As an adult, if you were to stand up, it would probably, standing up tall, reach to your hip. And is not uncommonly found wading sort of leg deep into the mud to go and catch whatever's going about. That little bird that you see tinkering about in front of it, that's a three-banded courser. Let me have a look and see, just confirm it for you with my binoculars before I stick. Yeah, three-banded courser. Also a bird that eats insects on the muddy fringes and is associated with these pans. Three-banded plover. Not courser, excuse me. Three-banded plover. dead quiet around here at the moment. I haven't heard any other reports of anyone else hearing those lions roaring. It definitely sounded like they were on our property, I must be honest. Well, on the property that we traverse. For those of you who are, we've got a grey duiker that's just come out of the leaves and then straight back into it again. Have a look over there, right at the end of there we go. Well done, Gert. Characteristic black stripe down its tail. And then that's just habits of just disappearing or diving into the bush as soon as it can. Alright, I think let's carry on going. Oh, hang on, wait, that heron is wading. Just to put proof to my point. Got this funny noise happening in the bushes off to my right hand side where that duiker dived into. I'm just trying to figure out exactly what it is. I think it's an alarm call actually. It's so difficult actually getting an idea of where these sounds are coming from. Excuse me having to cup my ear. What it does is it gives me a bit of a kudu ear. I'll show you how to do it. You take your hands and you make two cups like this and then you cup your ears. It doesn't look very clever or very smart, I must be honest, but you cup your ears. And what it does is it actually amplifies sound coming from any particular area. You can try it in your house or where you're sitting at the moment. Cup your ear and try and listen to a conversation across your office, or cup your ear and try and listen to something that's far away and then cup your ear like that, like I was doing, and you'll see what a dramatic difference it actually makes. Sun reflected off of the water is actually quite pretty. That's a blacksmith lapwing. Just hunting the water's edge here. Michael, who's 18 and watching the show all the way from the US. Hi, Michael. You just asked me if the grey heron is related to your great blue heron. Are they the same bird or are they just related? I would say that they're probably not the same bird and that they are related. You'd find that herons across the world would share some similarities, but there'd be differences. They'd share similar ways of wading. There might even be similar sizes, but their colorations will be slightly different. I remember when I traveled through the US on a bit of a birding trip, I saw many birds, even skimmers, which I only thought occurred in Africa, but when I looked closer, their coloration was slightly different. And the gentleman I was traveling with absolutely confirmed to me, and he's an African wilderness expert as well, confirmed to me that while they may look the same, while they may even behave the same, they're definitely different birds with different habitats and behaviors. So I would say, without knowing your great blue heron at all, I would say that it's probably a similar type of bird exhibiting a similar type of behavior, but isn't the same species. Alright, I think let's move on from here. Let's see if we can try and pick up any of these cats around here. Loda wanted to know what my favorite safari bird is. That's a tough one. I think it changes with my moods, to be quite honest with you. I quite enjoy the parrots. Any bird that's really animated I quite enjoy. Watching a hammerkop fish by moving his leg in and out of mud is quite comical. I enjoy watching the woodpeckers and I suppose a whole bunch of different birds. It's definitely mood related with me, to be quite honest. Mood and daytime. Depends on how I feel. Alright, now we've got this very fine talcum-like dust here, and it is very good for holding tracks. Now what I'm going to do, absolutely going to see where these tracks of these lioness come and go from. I'm busy looking at the game paths all around the dam, and what I'm expecting to see at some point is tracks of these female lioness. When we left them, there were 4 of them, and that was including the mother of the cubs that is in this area. And that is a formidable hunting force. The Nkahuma sisters, all back, very experienced at hunting buffalo. It's nice to know that those elephants that were in this area seem to have moved off. When we left the cubs last night, there was a herd of elephant that was right there, literally by them. I was a bit worried. Elephant can be a bit edgy around lion cubs. And while I've never seen elephant kill cubs myself, it's not uncommon to hear of cubs going missing after elephants have been in the area. Okay, here we've got some lion tracks of all of the sisters. They come out here and they cross through this block. Let me show you. Let me show you the fresh tracks of these lions. Before I jump out, it's always a good idea to have a look at what goes on. But here's a track here. That's one. That's the second sister. Here's the third. So we've got 3 lioness here. So just 3. And here's a 4th one here. 4 lioness. So we've got them walking next to one another slightly. Here's 1, 2, 3, and 4. All of them together, going off in this direction, which is not quite where we heard those male lions roaring. We heard those male lions roaring there. These lionesses' tracks head off in this direction. They might be joining up with one another, but at least it's given us a direction where we need to start looking. Alright, which is good. So, time to turn around, because this road goes in exactly the opposite direction to those tracks. Alright, and I think while we're busy turning around and deciphering this trail, let me go back to Jamie and you can get an update on what she's been up to.
Steph is several steps ahead of me this morning. He's got a trail to decipher. I haven't got any trails to decipher. It doesn't look as though Karula's come back towards those cubs, but it's impossible to tell because of the area that she's put them in. There's so much vehicle traffic that I have no doubt that I could have missed a track going in. I don't think so. I've checked really carefully, but I can't find any sign of them going out again. But it's so tricky to tell, just in terms of the constant vehicle traffic that goes around that particular area. And we're going to expand our search further afield. We'll stop, find a patch of sun and have a look at these impala, because I'm cold and I feel as though some sunbathing time might be quite nice. There we go. Ooh, this is very nice. Before we get to Icicle Dip, used to be known as Philemon's Dip, it's now known as Icicle Dip. And just like our waterbuck from earlier, fluffed up and deep red from the cold. And the nice thing is, now that the rutting season has passed, we're seeing more and more of these mixed herds. The males are still getting confused every now and again. Listening to the alarm call of the go-away bird, but it's not serious. But yes, you've got mixed herds of males and young males and females. Look how much our little ones from the start of the year or the end of last year have grown, with their now little dagger-like horns. What have you seen, Impala? Nothing too interesting. Much more occupied with nibbling away at the strychnos, or the monkey orange. There's one impala looking off into the distance. I wonder what she has seen. It's nothing that is distressing her too much. She was just double checking to make sure all was okay there. And now, after the rutting season, almost every single female that we watch is pregnant. Only still in early stages, but they will be starting to look enormous before we get to the start of the rainy season, before they give birth at the end of November, beginning of December. And that's something that all of us always look forward to. It's such a beautiful time with little impala lambs leaping about and playing around. Here's the big male, or one of the big males. As I said, the groups are starting to mix now. With those dark metatarsal glands on the back of his legs. Those dark patches of fur on his back legs hide a gland that releases pheromones, but nobody actually knows exactly what it's for. One theory is that they release scent from those glands when they're being chased, when their adrenaline goes up and they become stressed. And what it does is it sort of acts to keep the herd running together. I think it probably serves that purpose, or potentially even more, just to do with the natural hormonal cycle of the animals. He's looking in good condition. And still, the little male's a bit nervous of him. With his fully grown horns. There's another male. So, what we were talking about before, starting to mix things up a bit. They still, every now and again, when an impala ram runs past another impala ram, they get jumpy, waiting to see if that impala ram is going to start a fight with them or not. Okay. Well, they cross towards Philemon. Waiting to see if that impala ram is going to start a fight with them or not. Okay. Well, they cross towards Philemon. So, before I launch into another series of apologies for the technical difficulties, we're going to watch this elephant for a moment, just to make sure that all is up and running before I start having to repeat myself once again. And let us enjoy the sighting of this bull elephant, munching away on an acacia tree. Alright, all seems well. In that case, I shall pass on my apologies. We're very sorry, something went wrong, but we seem to be up and running once again, and hopefully back in sync with the stream that's going out. Obviously my mouth was moving, but the sounds were coming out about 8 seconds delayed, but we seem to be sorted out now, so we do apologize. Just a quick update. When we get signal from the guys in Rwanda, then we will go live. You know, it's from the middle of a rainforest, essentially, so that might take them some time to get up and running, but as soon as they are up and running, then we will go live with them and their expedition into the mountains to find some gorillas for you. Oh, that still feels a bit weird to say. It's going to be very strange linking to gorillas. But for now, we've got a very peaceful sighting of our elephant bulls. And I'm sorry, I need to sneeze, but it's stuck. They're peacefully eating away. I wonder if this is Asbo, the elephant I've nicknamed, the antisocial behavioral order, because during, not last night, but the night before, an elephant broke into the main camp, the DRC, pushed over a very large tree onto the bathroom roof, narrowly avoiding pushing it over onto several people's vehicles. And I sometimes wonder, I think the elephants are smart enough to work out where they should push a tree over and where they shouldn't. Now, we had a very lucky, some vehicles had a very, very lucky escape in that sense. And then one of them came and kept me up until 2 o'clock in the morning, munching outside my window, which was beautiful, but I was then thoroughly exhausted by the end of it. Shame. The poor elephants struggling for food at the moment, trying to get to wherever they can, and I think the prospect of a leafy green tree inside a fenced area just proved to be far too attractive for them to stay away from. I don't think this is the gentleman that was in the garden with me. The one that I was chatting to until 2 o'clock in the morning had slightly shorter tusks. And this guy's got a bit longer tusks. There's just something so phenomenally peaceful about spending time with elephants. As they nibble away, he's thoroughly enjoying that acacia tree with its sweet bark. You can hear the Coqui Franklin. Coqui, Coqui. Making a great deal of noise. Jana, did you hear a weird sound from in there?
It was an ellie.
Is it an ellie? Okay, it might be the rest of, there might be a herd and these boys are just trailing them. I heard it, but I've got my earpiece in, so I couldn't quite work out exactly what the sound was. And elephants do make some very peculiar sounds. There's the other bull at the back. He might actually be my friend from the other night. I say my friend, he would not ever recognize me. Well, from our beautiful big elephant bulls, it seems as though Steph has also had some elephant luck. Let's head across to him and have a look at a tiny little elephant.
Welcome back. Yes, absolutely. We've got this elephant here, this female elephant without the tip of her trunk. She's well known to us, and she does have a tiny little baby elephant with her. I'll show you him now. She's just digging for roots at the base of this combretum, and she was using her foot, and that's what that dust cloud is in front of her face. And she's using her foot with great dexterity because she doesn't have the tips of her trunk, the fingers. There she's blowing. Isn't that amazing? There she's lifting up. You can see not having the tip of her trunk isn't doing too much. There looks like she's gonna use her toenails and her toes again. There you go. Holding it. A little bit clumsy. Using her foot there to great use. I think she's probably learned how to use her foot much more than other elephants would, because she doesn't have those two fingers on the end of her trunk. But like we've remarked on so many occasions, it doesn't seem to have had a detrimental effect on this particular elephant at all. Her calf is still in good condition. She's still in good condition. Have a look at her chewing that root. Now, quite often we find elephants chewing roots, and I know from studies that I've done with plants that most of the minerals and the nutrients are found in the root and the root bark of trees. Probably about 8 out of every 10 medicinal uses of plants out here is the roots of a tree. contrary to popular belief, not the leaves and not the fruits in most cases. There she's now just shifting those bushes out the way. Looks like hasn't quite finished with this particular tree yet. Using her toenails and her heel. There you go. It's not very often we get to see elephants doing this relaxed. She's incredibly relaxed with the vehicle. We're no more than 10 yards away from her at the moment. Crunching away at those leaves and the roots. Her eyes are angled down. She's actually looking at her feet right now. So most of their vision is centered around the tip of their trunk and their feet. They actually have to lift their head up to see us. She absolutely knows we're here. We're in a 7,000 pound car. Actually not that much. We're probably a 4,000 pound car with 2 men on the back. Not having any reaction to us, which is exactly how we like it. Using her heel again to loosen up that trunk. There she goes. Amazing the power that she's got in that trunk, eh? There's a bit of speculation as to how she... Yep. Mercedes has just asked me a question about how do elephants sleep and what do they do at night. Mercedes, they absolutely do sleep. They sleep on their sides like we do. So they sleep right flat on their sides with their head down, fast asleep. They look almost unconscious. And they will sleep a couple of hours a night. It's seasonal, so in summertime they'll sleep a lot longer than they do in wintertime, simply because in winter they need to eat much more food to get the nutrition that they need to stay healthy. So she will sleep a couple of hours a day. Usually in wintertime, that is taken in short snippets between bouts of feeding. That rumble that you heard, that's a contact rumble. That sound, that very deep sound, is made in the frontal part of her head, where you... Just amazing the way that she's using her feet there. She's just getting the sand out of the way. Getting the brush out of the way now. Well, Megan, all the way from Ottawa, good evening, Megan. You just asked a nice question, and how difficult is it to actually dig there? If I were to dig there, how easy would it be? Megan, it's difficult, to be honest with you. We wouldn't be able to do it with our fingers and our feet. We would definitely need an implement like a pick or a spade. We'd really easily, with a pick and a spade, dig like she's digging, but definitely not with our fingernails and our feet like she is. It'll take some considerable effort. Those roots, for instance, that she's just quite easily plucking out of the ground, you won't be able to pull broken with your hands and your strength. The thinner ones maybe, but like the one that she's eating there right now, There's no way that I could have broken that with my own strength as a single person here. I would have needed a tool. She looks like she's really enjoying that root. You can almost see this look of contentment on her face. Yeah. I don't know if she's gingerly chewing it or not. So Karen, you've asked us from New York, what is the tip of her trunk? What's it from? Is it from a birth defect or from an injury of some sort? Karen, I'd most likely say that it's an injury of some sort. She's either burnt it or it was bitten off in a fight, which quite often happens. She could have lost it as a youngster to hyena or to lion. It doesn't look like a birth defect. It's a bit... There looks like some scar tissue that's at the end of that trunk. It just looks a bit raw for a birth defect. It's not to say that elephants don't get birth defects. They absolutely do. But in this particular case, I think, and it's also not even. It seems to be a little bit higher up the trunk on the right-hand side of the trunk than on the left-hand side of the trunk. Let's see what you think. To me, it just looks like there's a bit of scar tissue there. And that it happened a long time ago. She's incredibly good with her trunk the way it is. I don't think it's a recent injury. I think that this probably happened as a calf. Elephants do bite one another. And you sometimes see elephants with missing tails and chunks out of their trunks. It's absolutely them biting one another. They also get preyed upon by lion and by hyena. And as a youngster, she may have fallen victim to a lion or a hyena. It could also even be something like a crocodile, having grabbed her on the end of the trunk and created such a bad wound that by the time it healed itself, she had lost the use of the tip, or lost the tip of her trunk, not just the use. There's also a good chance it may have been a snare. I don't know where she's from, but it's not uncommon to find snares, wire snares in the bush here from time to time. She may have been feeding like she is now and caught the tip of her trunk in a snare, and then in her efforts to try and release herself, that snare then cut into her trunk and chopped off the end of it. But I must be honest, while I pity her, I don't have another feeling that comes across when I look at her. To be honest with you, she's actually okay. There's nothing wrong with her ability to look after herself and look after her baby, in actual fact. So, in other words, it's a disability that's had no noticeable effect on what she is. That's her baby that you're looking at over there. I don't quite know if it's a male or female. I think it's a young female. Rene, you've just asked me a nice question. Is she smaller than normal? You've noticed that she's standing almost eye level to the vehicle that we're at. She's not a full-grown female elephant, Rene. You're quite correct. She's a youngster. I don't think that it's her first baby. I would say that she's probably in her 20s. This elephant, somewhere between 20 and 30 is where I judge what she is. I'm sitting on the back of a Land Rover, and she is below eye level with me. Her head height at the moment is on par with me in a Land Rover. So I am 6 foot tall, and I'm probably sitting at about 6 foot, just below 6 foot, 5'8", 5'9". That's what her head is at the moment. And I think even if she had to pick her head up to full stretch, she'd just be taller than me just a little bit. So there she goes. Just wrapped that root around her trunk like you would a string around your arm and just pulled it out of the ground. I would have had to have strained against that root with probably all of my weight to get that right. Look at how she's bending her head down. And she's going to kick it. No, using the sideways sweep of her foot to get that out. How interesting. Thank you very much. Okay, man, now all of a sudden. I'll put that down to her having some dust in her trunk that she wanted to get out. She wasn't telling us anything. If we were upsetting her, she would have let us know a long time ago. I think she was just sneezing and shaking the dust out of her head. So no, just to finish off that comment, not a very big female. So Sarah, you've just made an interesting comment that you read somewhere or you've heard from someone that elephants are left or right tusked. And you'd like me to expand on that. No, they absolutely are. Sarah, elephant have got what they call a slave tusk, which will be a tusk that they have learned to use over the other one. They have a hemisphere. They have hemisphere preference, similar to what we do. And they will have, out of their two tusks, one tusk will be noticeably more used than the other, with some elephant, not all elephant, with some elephant. That's called the slave tusk, and that elephant will either be left or right dominated on that tusk. But far more importantly, every elephant definitely is left or right-sided with their tusk. When an elephant, for instance, has a grass or a piece of stick, and they do that with their trunk, they will either always go this way around, or that way around. So they'll either approach it this way around or that way around, and that is individual. That is for every single elephant has either a right twist or a left twist to their trunk when they're picking up grass. So you're absolutely right. Your observation there, or what you heard there, is not wrong. They do exhibit a slave tusk behavior. Some elephant, not all elephants, some elephant have perfectly symmetrical tusks, but what every elephant does have is either a lefting twist or a righting twist when they're busy feeding on grass. Let's see. We won't be able to see it with this elephant because she doesn't have the fingers to her trunk. She may show us. She's now standing in an absolutely a wrong one for us to see that. But good observation there, Sarah. Dawn, welcome to Safari Live. You're a first-time viewer and you've just made a comment saying that you love seeing baby elephants. Well, welcome to Safari Live, Dawn. And yes, comments like that are awesome. I'm actually going to try and move the car a little bit. So I'm going to see if I can get us into a position where we can see the baby a bit better. There you go. Baby elephant copy what the rest of the elephants in the herd do like you can't believe. They're like little copycats, and even though this young elephant is still nursing from his mom, he has already started to foray into the vegetables, into his greens. And what will be interesting to learn about this little elephant is if this little elephant, in copying his mother's feeding style, in other words, using her feet more than her trunk, if he will have an advantage over his peers in years to come. Because she's teaching him how to live by using her feet more than her trunk. Whereas he's going to have the benefit of choosing which one he wants to use in whatever application. You can see that trunk is still a little bit floppy. It takes them almost 6 months to learn how to use their trunk properly. I just find elephants so fascinating to watch, to be honest with you. Good question, Richard, all the way out from Houston. You've asked me if they sleep on their sides and they sleep, how do they protect their babies? Richard, every herd member here is responsible for the safety of every other member in that herd. And so, although the babies generally sleep with moms looking over them, they don't sleep at the same time. But if it would happen that a mom and a baby had to fall asleep at the same time, there will be some members of that herd who are not sleeping. And so it's only really the single bulls, the large bulls, who sleep solitarily. They don't have anyone standing guard over them, but they really don't have anyone or anything to worry about. But these female elephant that do have lion to worry about, that do have hyena to worry about, when they corral themselves in the evenings in some shade or on the side of a termite mound, not all of them will sleep at the same time. That's the first safety measure. The second safety measure is that every herd member has a responsibility towards the collective safety of the herd. They will all stand guard, or the ones that are awake. And when they get tired and fall asleep, then their friends will wake up. Act as sentries, basically. I love the way these baby elephants fold their ears over their backs. Because they're still so young, they don't quite know how to use their ears just yet. Have a look. He's putting some pressure on his trunk so his back legs are lifting up in the air. And now I've laughed at her. I wonder what's happened. I think she's got a thorn. It looked like she had a thorn stuck in her foot. So the ears on an elephant are used as big radiators. They cool the elephant's blood down and therefore keeping their core body temperature cool. But baby elephants, being a bit smaller, they don't need to flap their ears as much as large elephants do. And so you find that they keep them folded over themselves like we saw there, and tight to their bodies, as you can see, with very little flapping going on. Yeah, Mom is still feeding very calm. Baby's just standing in the sun. I think the baby actually moved out of the shade to go and stand in the sun to warm up. Very, very nice setting. You can see this female in profile. You can see her forehead. Very angled. You see that angle on her forehead in profile? That will help you determine the sex of an elephant from far away if you can just see the head. Male elephant have a big dome on the front, not that angle that you can see so pronounced on this female. And Jackson X has just asked me a question which I've promptly forgotten. I'm so sorry. Rebecca, if you wouldn't mind just repeating that for me. So Jackson, you've asked me why elephants communicate in such low frequencies. They actually communicate in a very wide set of frequencies, from a infrasound, which is ultra low wave, or ultra low frequency, sorry, all the way up to a massively high-pitched squeal scream. Now, they use the low frequency calls to communicate in thick bush, because low frequency waves, sound waves, are less prone to being deflected away from or by thick vegetation, and so they can keep contact with one another over large distances, up to 6 miles, using these low frequency calls. And then they use the high-pitched screams when they are anguished or when they are being attacked. They trumpet and they scream. So their range of sound is actually incredible. They can generate a massive range of sound, using it for different things. The scream is usually rage or being upset or angry. Having a look at this little one coming right up to us. So Mom has now excavated the ditch, and now Baby's coming to see what tidbits can be found in the excavation that Mommy's made. And let's see if she's learnt. I think it's a female. She looks dainty enough to be a female. There we go. Just pulled off a little root. Didn't quite get the whole motion. I think there was a little bit too much effort going on there. There we go. Also a bit of a head shake. Just practicing for one day when she's bigger.